Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca, and today we're talking about Kobo versus Kindle. Now, this is going to be a light version, okay? A little impromptu moment, if you will, because I was debating on the timing of doing this video, and so I think what I'm going to do is just kind of talk to you about my basic feelings between the two, and then based on your questions, feedback, or things that you want to know more about, I will probably make a part 2. This video is not going to go into any of the technical side of it, I guess. So, like, for example, I know people have questions about things like making custom lock screens for your Kindle. What does it look like to put arcs on your Kobo? Things like that. I'm not going to go into any of that right now. Instead, what I'm going to do is just go over the things that I have just noticed a little bit between the two devices, things that I like, things that I don't like, and whether or not I think it's worth it to have one or the other, I guess. So let's get started. So to tell you what devices I'm using, I have what I think is the 11th gen. It's the 2021 Kindle Paperwhite in the sage green color that you can kind of see on the side there. I have skins on, obviously. And then I have the Kobo Libra Colour here. I don't have sleep-weight cases on either one of those because I won't say that I don't like them. I have them for both of them. Not from their companies, but from the third-party vendors that I've enjoyed. And sometimes I'll use them, sometimes I won't. I will say that the vendor I use just updated theirs, so the one that she makes for the Kobo now has like a little hand strap in it. So when you flip it back, you can kind of rest your hand there, because before it didn't, which is why I stopped using it on my Paperwhite, actually, because I got tired of it flapping open. I do have a pen for the Kobo Libra Colour, but not the one they sell. It's actually I'll put a link for it in the description box underneath the video, and show you a photo of it, but it's basically the same thing. The only difference is, instead of when you go to write with the pen and you hit the button and it becomes a highlighter, it actually becomes the eraser, I think. It's like things are inverse. It's not a huge deal. I don't use it a ton. I thought I was going to annotate way more on this, but I don't. I just highlight a lot and change colors, but. So why did I buy a Kobo Libra Colour? Number one, I had some extra money, okay? I had some extra money after Christmas, and I thought, you know what? Treat yourself. If you hate it, you'll return it. You'll have the money back. Who cares? I also was interested in looking at devices that had color options, but I did not want a Kindle Color Soft because there are no buttons. I had a Kindle Oasis for quite a while, and I actually did a video almost a year ago about switching to a Paperwhite from the Oasis, like what I thought the Paperwhite was worth it. And I have enjoyed my time with my Paperwhite for the most part, but there are times where I do miss reading in color, and like I would read on my iPad instead when I would want those moments. I also just really missed having buttons, and honestly, less so than the buttons, the space to hold my hand. That's such a basic thing, but it is so nice to be able to grip to the side of the screen and not have any part of it covering the screen and not feeling forced to use a pop socket, because I don't love having to use that, but it's the only way for me to get a comfortable feel of the device in my hand. And so I really was looking forward to that. The buttons are a nice touch. I also like that I think you can manipulate the Kindle to do this through some settings, but by nature, the Kobo, number one, if you flip it one way or the other, the page flips as according to it. But I also can read it like this. Like, in fact, I'll turn this on so you can see. It's going to shift once I get into the book. Like, I can read like that, or I can turn this way, it'll go that way. And if I flip it the other way, it turns upside down. And not upside down, but right side up. It's sensitive in a good way for you switching the position of the device, which I really appreciate. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? There are a lot of little things while you're reading in the book that are different to me. So one of the things I really like is that the Kobo has two options. I don't know if you can see that. Number one, this is one of my favorites. I can just slide down to turn and change the brightness on the screen. You slide up and down. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit so you can see. Okay, hopefully you can see the screen a little bit better now. So at the top here, it will show you your progress. This says chapter 1 of 19, as in there are 19 pages in chapter 1. And then at the bottom is another progress bar that's there. And this says The Love Lyric, which is the name of the book I'm reading. And then I'm on page 21 of 488. So you get where you are in the book, but then also how you're doing in the pages above. And what I like about this is there are times where I wonder how far into the book I am, especially in romance books that have short chapters. Sometimes it's easy to get kind of lost into where you are. But I really, really enjoy that. I know some people really like to know how they're doing in the book. Like, they want to know what percent they're in. And you can switch those status bars to do different things. So if you prefer a percent, you could switch it to that. But what I really like is that in the regular menu near the top here, I get some additional options, and there is one that is a bar graph, and it will actually show you the percentage I'm in the book. I think this is 5%. I have 10 minutes to go in this chapter. I have 10 minutes to read till the next chapter. It tells me the general, like, I think chapter lengths with that bar graph on the side there, and then it says I have 4.4 hours to go based on what the Kobo knows my reading speed is, which I really enjoy. It also kind of adjusts per book. Like, when I was reading a fantasy book the other day, my time left in chapter was a bit slower, even though the average page length was the same as the romance book I had been reading. And it's just because when I'm reading fantasy, I read that a little slower, and so I like that. I also really like that I can access those same stats just in my Kobo. So if I come into, let's see, just the regular homepage here, there's a more option on the side where I can see additional options. And then if I go into activity, it will show me for the book that I'm currently reading. Let's see if I can get you to see that a little better. But then also, I think if I go back to main reading stats, it'll just tell me all of them. Maybe not. Maybe it's just for the book you're reading. Interesting. I thought it would do more, but it doesn't. But it does say all items. 4% of your books are finished. 2 books finished. 22.4 total hours of reading, which is kind of nice to be able to see. So there is a little bit more detail at the bottom there about your reading as a whole. I would like to see more of, like, your average time spent reading, average average minutes per session, because right now it's just doing it for this book, so obviously that's going to change book to book. But it is nice to be able to just see that right then and there, rather than having to in a way kind of dig for it, but also I feel like you're kind of not digging for it, because on the Kindle it doesn't really have that in that same way. One thing I do miss about the Paperwhite that the Kobo does not have is being able to see the time just right there at the top. I am a person who likes to wake up and kind of ignore my alarm. And what I've done to kind of gamify waking up in the morning is I will turn my alarm off. I will immediately grab either my Kindle or my Kobo, and I'll read for a little while. The problem with that is if I get really into the book, I could be reading for 30 minutes instead of, like, maybe the 15 that it's safe for me to read before I need to, like, actually get up and get ready. And so on the Paperwhite, you have the time just right there at the top that I believe you can turn off or on. On the Kobo, it's not there when you're in the book page. Let's see if we can turn this on. But it is always a part of the menu bar, so really all I would need to do is tap in the menu, and then the time will come up in the corner, which you can't really see. There we go. And then the time comes up in the corner, so I can tap to see and, like, see what's going on, but I do wish that was just, like, right there in the, and just in the main menu option. I know that you can technically mod your Kobo. Like, it's a pretty open system, so I probably could make some changes to do that, but that's a thing I think should just be available out of the box, but that's just my personal opinion. I also, this is so random, the power button placement. I used to think that Kobos looked so weird with their back buttons for their power buttons, but I'm kind of obsessed with it from a functionality standpoint. The problem with this one being on the bottom by the charger is sometimes if I'm, like, reading somewhere and I go to, like, place it down, if there's too much pressure, it would power off or put my Kindle to sleep, which was very annoying for me because the button protrudes. Whereas because this one is a little bit more recessed, and number one, it's in a spot in the top where, like, you're not, even if I'm leaning it on something, like, realistically nothing's gonna hit that, it's not affected, which I really appreciate. Obviously, I really enjoy the color of my Kobo. I'm shocked at how little I've had to charge it, honestly. I will say part of this is because it's not my primary device. I have still used my Kindle from time to time. I still have plans right now to keep my Kindle Unlimited subscription. because there are just several indie authors that I support, and because of the way Amazon locks them into their system, it's not like they can easily put their books out for the library or available on other, e-commerce options. So you're kind of stuck in that way. And I don't know if I'm going to keep Kindle Unlimited around forever, but right now it's kind of nice. I obviously can't get those devices on my Kobo because Kindle is so locked. I did debate when I was doing this whether I should do this or order up books. But my issue with books devices is a me thing. It's not about the device itself, but it runs Android OS, which is totally fine. No shade there. I just want my e-reader to only do that. And while books gives you the freedom of having, the Kobo app, the Kindle app, I guess you probably could download Apple Books too, or Nook or whatever system you want in addition to like Libby. The problem with that for me is I would inevitably download Instagram. I would inevitably download like other apps on the device, and then it would just go back to being a distraction like my phone is, which is the whole reason for me getting a separate device for reading, was so that was all that it would do. And so I chose the Kobo for that reason. I also chose the Kobo because it has Libby built right into it. And here's what I mean. So when you're setting up your Kobo, there's an option to sign in. It says Overdrive on the labeling, but it is the Libby app. And I know that's confusing for some people because here in the States, when Overdrive put out the Libby app, they went on this whole campaign of like, Overdrive is dead. You need to use Libby. Overdrive won't work anymore. Which for us seemingly was like, oh, you're never going to be able to use Overdrive again. Overdrive is dead. That's only true in the United States and only kind of partially because a lot of the backend system is still Overdrive. Like if you go to the webpage for your library's Libby, unless you're on libbyapp.com, like a lot of them still will say like austin.overdrive.com if you use Austin Public Library. So it's not dead. But I say all that to say you can go through. So there's not a button for it here in the bottom. But if you'll notice here towards, I think it's over here, where it talks about books I have available for my library. It says borrow ebooks from your library. And it will like load through for you to look at. I can see my library holds from here. Let's see. Yeah, the Discover tab is where, the Discover tab has a lot of things. It has ebooks, audiobooks, Kobo Plus, and Overdrive if you have your Overdrive signed in, i.e. your Libby signed in. One of the things I really enjoy is that you can, when you're shopping for books through the Kobo app, which is no different than trying to shop for a book on like the Kindle app. I shouldn't say the app, like the website really, because they both have the thing where they make you go to the website because they're not trying to give Apple or Android a big chunk of change for your in-app purchase, because technically buying an ebook through the app is an in-app purchase. But because they don't do that and you go to the website, it's the same process though. Like it's basically the same library. Like Simon & Schuster sells their book on Kindle, there's some on Kobo, there's some on Nook. Like all of that is the same. Where the difference is on the indie side of things. So if I have a book that I know is traditionally published that like I want to go through and buy, I can go in directly on the device like you would for any other book, like the same way I could do on my Kindle. But what's nice is that there is an option to, when you go to click buy, there's like a little drop down. I'll see if I can put like a little video clip here so you can see, to say check, my library. And if it's available, it literally gives you a borrow button right there. And if it's not available, you can put it on your holds list from there, which is very nice. I really appreciate that is right there and it's not too difficult to use. I think it could be a little cleaner. Like I think if I didn't know that if I press that button, it would do that, it would be a little harder, but generally speaking, it is nice to know that it is truly just like right there and available for you. You also can continue to browse your library books in the Libby app on your phone or your computer or whatever, and like putting your holds and stuff there. And you can still then go see that holds list on your Kobo. So as things change and become available, you can check it out. Ooh, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the Kobo has 3 cloud services built in. Well, one's cloud-ish. There's Dropbox, Google Drive, and my articles from Pocket are available in here too. So I am a person who from time to time will get sent PDFs for like work for if we're gonna start using like a new app or something to help manage something for a client. A lot of time I will want to read through like their knowledge-based articles or like their how-to guides on like how to set it up, best practices, things like that. And so it's nice to be able to throw that in my Google Drive or my Dropbox and then just have that show up in my Kobo, and then I can just go about reading it. It's not too dissimilar from doing that on like your phone or something, but there's something nice about being able to have like a dedicated spot for that. Also, if you sometimes like to buy your ebooks from independent presses, like I think about Haymarket Press, they usually have incredible sales a couple times a year, and they focus a lot on authors of color and people who are in underrepresented situations. So a lot of their books that they publish, a lot of them are nonfiction actually. So if you wanted to learn more about like immigration or, let's say Black Lives Matter, histories of like slavery, just all sorts of things that like are important historical things for groups of people that often are not widely talked about, specifically here in the States, in a educational and what's the word I'm looking for? Like driven way. You can go through and get books from them, but I love it. It's very easy to buy ebooks from them, and then they have options to send to your Kindle, send to your Kobo, however you get those on your devices. And so half the time when I get books from them, I often will save a copy into my Google Drive, because most of the time I'm doing it on my computer and I don't want to, like, let's say something happens to my computer and then like that stuff is gone, so I will save a copy there. And so it's nice to be able to like see them in my drive and just be able to like click on the book, go through and read it because I bought it. Like, and so you can use this for nefarious purposes. This is my plea for y'all to stop pirating books when you have the means to get them other ways. I understand that waiting for stuff from Libby holds is not super fun, but you hurt authors when you steal their books. So just, stop getting pirated PDFs. But, you could use it for things like, I know people use it for school all the time. I say it all the time. They do a lot of their reading through that as well, by just sharing it through their drive, which I think is really awesome. And then Pocket used to be a really popular app. It still is, but I feel like it's less popular now that there's so many curated news apps. But you could save articles in there, and then you would go into your Pocket and like look at your saved articles, and you would just kind of read through them. And so it's nice to be able to also do that from here. So those are things that I love about the Kobo. I think I'm going to keep my Paperwhite around for a while. There's nothing wrong with this device other than it is laggy and slow. I really hate highlighting text on this. I find that anytime I want to highlight and it crosses to the next page, it takes me a good 5 minutes to get my Kindle to understand that that's what I want to do. I do not have that problem on my Kobo. I can highlight to my heart's content across pages with it understanding exactly what I'm asking for. But I still love this device. And I think until I get to the point where I'm not really using Kindle Unlimited anymore, I'm probably going to keep it for now. My grandpa has mentioned maybe going back to an e-reader. He used to a lot, but his Kindle was one of the ones that had like a keyboard on it from like 2010, and it obviously does not work anymore. And right now he's reading a lot of like large print books that he gets from the library, and I was explaining to him like, you can just change the font by, like you just, like you would on your iPad. And he's like, oh well, maybe. And so he's waffling about it, so he might be getting this device, as a hand-me-down, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just one of those things where it's frustrating me in my day-to-day use of it, but he is not a velocireader like I am, and he's likely not going to be highlighting text and things like that, and that's never going to bother him. So I may just do that. I may just wipe it and then let him hook up to his Amazon account, because my grandma reads a lot too, and they use the same account, so I'm sure there are plenty of books that he could access that way. So I know that was a bit disjointed and kind of rambly, but I just wanted to go over some of the things that I have enjoyed about having a Kobo. It's only been like 3 weeks at this point. I think I will eventually do a video on how I get my NetGalley arcs in there, because right now I have been using it to test. I have really only had my NetGalley arcs in there. I've gotten a couple of books from like daily deals, like you would from like Kindle daily deals. I did it through Kobo instead, but it was the same book options because the publishers are the ones putting them on sale. So I don't really have a ton in my library right now. I also know it's possible to move the books you have bought on your Kindle from your Kindle to your Kobo using your computer in the Colibra app, which I have to use for NetGalley already. So I might venture into that and then give you guys my overall thoughts and feelings on that process, because one of the other things I really struggle with my Kindle that I haven't tested out on Kobo yet, and this will be a homework item for me, is what do you do with books that you don't necessarily want anymore or you don't want to see? I've been putting mine in collections on Kindle because there's no way that I found to remove them from your Kindle without removing them from your library. Like the permanent delete option is like it's gone from your account. You'd have to buy the book again. But half the time it's not that. It's that I've been a Kindle user, whether through the app from, the 4th generation Paperwhite to whatever, since like 2011. And so at this point I have amassed so many ebooks. Like there's easily 300 to 400 ebooks on that device. And sometimes I just want to see what's on my TBR, and I don't want to have to make a collection and then go to that collection to view what's on my TBR. Sometimes I just want only the books I want to see on there, and I wish I could manipulate that more through the app or through even just Amazon.com to like free myself of the amount of books that I'm seeing and be able to like limit it. And I haven't really been able to do that. So instead of immediately moving my entire Kindle library over because I wasn't sure how that function worked, I only put I only put NetGalley arcs on my Kobo. And so now I'm going to test that out. I'm going to take one of those and see if I can remove it. Or maybe I'll take one of the books that I got, because that would make a little bit more sense, a book that I got out of the Kobo store, and see if there's an option to remove it from viewing it on my Kobo, but it still stay in my account with an option to push it back to the device if I want to. Because that's all I want. I essentially want to be able to treat my books the way you would an app out of the App Store. If you don't want it on your phone anymore, being able to remove it, but being able to very easily re-download it at no cost to you if it was one you paid for. That's all I want. I don't think that's a lot to ask, but it doesn't seem to be a high feature priority for a lot of e-reader makers. So that's my spiel. I thank you for watching. Again, hit me down in the comments with your questions, comments, concerns, all that fun stuff. And I will see you in another video soon.